You might not think Central Park is anyone's front porch, but on this night, it sure feels that way.
You know me. One thing I can tell you is you've got to be free. Come together right now.
Hi, and welcome to the Front Porch Movement, a voice in civic engagement with stories that inform, connect, and help us understand one another. I'm your host, Ted Canova. December 8th is one of those days when the music died. That date 35 years ago, John Lennon was killed, and every year since, fans have been memorializing his legacy in Central Park's Strawberry Fields.
It's such a feeling that my love, I get high, I get high, I get high.
So that's where I headed on the night of December 8th, just across the street from where Lennon was shot, down a short path into Central Park to a group of fans standing in a circle, 7 deep. Some with instruments, others with just their voices, singing Beatles songs with no concept of time. I walked around the circle 3 times looking for someone who came out and stood out. And as I jumped up on a bench, I looked into the singing circle, and then I looked to my right, where I met a father and his 22-year-old son. What's your name?
Marty Trent.
And you're?
Paul Trent.
Where are you from?
Bergen County, New Jersey.
Well, why don't you explain? What are we looking at?
Well, every year people come here to Strawberry Fields to commemorate the unfortunate, untimely death of John Lennon, a poet, great musician, a speaker of truth. Did he have his faults? Yes, he did. But he was someone who was revered by millions and millions of people. I was 20 years old, 35 years ago tonight. I was in Florida, attending school. My best friend woke me up at 11:30 with a phone call that John Lennon had been shot. I thought he was, kidding around with me, and I really didn't have any time for games, and he told me to put on the news, and I did. And after I found out he died, I stayed on the phone with my friend, half hour later. I was very distraught, and I flew home the very next day, because whatever was happening here in Central Park, I felt at 20 years old the need to be a part of it. And on December 14th, they had a vigil here in Central Park at the band shell, and I attended that with my brother and my friend Kenny. We attended the vigil. It was like 14 degrees outside, freezing our butts off, and we were here. And I have this candle that was handed out and a shirt that I bought for $5, which no longer, of course, fits me.
And that shirt is wrapped around your neck right now.
Yes, it is.
And the candle is in your left hand right now.
I have since passed on these mementos to my son Paul, along with this button that he has, which I also bought the same day. And every year we come here to commemorate John's death. And unfortunately, there are a lot of commemorations of untimely passings. There have been very disturbing events happening since December 8th, 1980, which shock us all, make us very sad. And I guess this is just a way for us who cared about John Lennon, who care about the things that are going on in the world today, to come out here and be with like-minded people and share our happiness and joy for the life that these people have led, and commemorate their untimely passing.
When I jumped on the subway tonight to come to 72nd and Central Park West to be here, I realized that even though people were going to have a sense of community at Strawberry Field, it didn't mean everybody's got this homogenized point of view about the world and where things are. It would be easy to just say everybody here is liberal, progressive, and, a John Lennon lover, which of course they are, but at least the John Lennon lover. But, community in 2015, 2016 doesn't mean we're all lockstep.
That's correct. I think no matter what side you're on, the left, the right, the extreme side of either or, I think the spirit of America is coming together, as I witnessed in this city right after 9/11. A few days after, I volunteered down at Chelsea Piers to bring supplies down to Ground Zero. And I saw the police and firemen and volunteers come together. It's a Beatles song, Come Together, a John Lennon song, in fact. Strange that I'm mentioning that on this night, but Americans have always come together at the right time. You know, I watched a Pearl Harbor special yesterday commemorating the anniversary of December 7th, 1941. And, you know, we came together then. We came together on 9/11. We need to come together now to stop this unnecessary violence that is happening in not only in the world, but especially here in the United States.
How do you suppose we're going to get to that point? It just seems, you know, after Newtown we hear we're going to come together, after whatever tragedy we come together, and then it wears off.
That's correct. Newtown, in fact, affected me very profoundly as a father of two boys. Thinking back to when they were in the first grade, it's an unimaginable horror that these poor people had to endure. And you're correct in saying that after time wears off, the next big story takes place. After the Paris incident, the next incident that occurs, which unfortunately was right here in America, in California, that takes precedent. So how do we get to that point? It's a big country.
So you and your friends, you may not be lockstep politically or thinking of how the world works. Do you talk about this kind of stuff?
Yeah, we do. And, you know, it seems like in such a time of radical violence, if you will, there need to be some radical changes. What those changes are, me personally, as a citizen, I'm not sure. Gun control, I'm a gun owner, I hunt, I target shoot. Is gun control the right answer? Probably in certain ways. I don't think there's any need for assault rifles. Perhaps there should be a ban on that. Stricter visa qualifications to get into this country, I think would be a positive move. But, you know, in Washington, it's all about it's a political football.
You know, it's interesting. We come here to celebrate John Lennon on the anniversary of his death. And within a couple of minutes, we're talking about gun control and, ironically, gun control, which took Lennon down, or gun. But we're also talking about community, and in no time we're talking about community and it coming together, then we're talking about things that are keeping us apart. I mean, how do you reconcile that being in America at this point in your life?
Well, unfortunately, it's a very divisive situation. You have a lot of different opinions. This is what this country was founded upon. Everyone's entitled to their opinion and their religion. And, you know, look, I don't care who you are, what color you are, what religion you bow down to. If we all can get along, all you need is love.
The backdrop of the Beatle music that is being played by perfect strangers.
It's a bit ironic, isn't it?
So, if John was here now, what would his front porch story be?
Hey, if you look back to the late 60s and early 70s, John Lennon was an advocate against violence and against war. He was a peace-loving man. Did he come up with a couple of wacky tricks, bed-ins for peace, grow your hair for peace? Yes, but that was his mechanism for getting the word out that the Vietnam War at the time was a ridiculous thing for America and other countries to be involved in. And I think if John were here today, I think he would be standing on basically the same platform of stop the violence and let's all just get together and love is all you need.
So we go from community, perfect strangers here, we get into politics, and I'm trying to get back to stories maybe we used to share on the front porch. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in New Jersey.
And did you have a front porch?
I did.
Yeah?
Yeah.
What happened on that front porch?
You know, you used to sit around, talk, TV, you know, back in the late 60s, early 70s wasn't certainly what it is today. There was no internet. There was more communication. You played Monopoly on the front porch. You played cards. You hung out on a nice summer day and drank lemonade. Those days are over, you know, for this country as far as I could see. Maybe in other parts of the country it may persist, but you know, the metropolitan areas, I think, were very high-speed oriented. You know, the kids of today, the young adults, are all into the internet and, you know, their phones. There's very little conversation going on nowadays. This is why this is a good place to come once a year, as would other places be where these types of gatherings might occur. And, it's just human beings all gathered together to be happy and forget about whatever else might be happening in the world for a night.
The front porch concept has kind of gone away for a lot of reasons, and you bring up some of the technology and things like that. I wonder if you have a sense, in just us talking right now, we've only known each other for 15 minutes, do you get a sense of what is missing in America because we don't have that? And I don't mean Monopoly and lemonade.
What is missing from America? Family values. Kind of gotten away from it, but as the old saying goes, that's progress, if it is progress. I think it's a regression. But you know what? My son Paul here, who is 22 years old, 35 years from now, will be saying, boy, I wish we could get back to the old days of 2015 and the way we used to communicate. Could you imagine what it'll be like another 35 or 50 years from now?
Let me bring Paul in right now. You introduced him as Paulie. How are you, Paul?
I'm good. Thank you.
Paul, you're hearing your dad and I talking about this, and if you are like my son, who's now 23, he'd be saying, well, maybe he'd be respectful, but what are your thoughts right now hearing two adults, middle-aged, talking about this kind of Americana?
It's not unusual, I watch the news a lot and kind of up to date on current events, and it's sad to see some of the things that happen in today's world. He said family values. I think morals too. Morals have gone down the tube. See some things on TV that just aren't right, and I feel it's like affecting the youth, the generations coming up, and again, all coming back to the family values, That's why, like you said, it's so great to come here and enjoy the music and enjoy everybody's happiness and just have a good time,
So when we talk about this front porch concept, where in the yesteryear, people used to just sit there, your dad says, play Monopoly or have lemonade and just talk, that concept is probably foreign to you because of what? Technology? Because people have their minds made up on issues? You're the most important generation right now because you're going to be making all these decisions as a millennial. Do you make any sense of the nostalgia of a front porch versus how you and your friends talk now?
Well, I even remember, growing up in the early 90s, even saying, remember 10 years ago, that TV show, or even with internet, remember dial-up, and, it's just things like that. So even I'm looking back on when I grew up, and I'm like, wow, look at how we advanced from playing Monopoly on the front porch to dial-up internet, and then now to having internet on our phones, and me being able to pull my phone out of my pocket, go on Facebook, being able to communicate snap of a finger, I think it's crazy. I think it's insane. I love to see the world keep growing, but I don't want technology to totally consume the human race. It's important to have, human to human contact, definitely.
Marty, when you listen to your son talk like this, congratulations, you've raised a great kid, obviously, right?
Well, the biggest part any man can undertake is that of becoming a father, and an effective father, a loving father, and to guide your children, because that ultimately will be your legacy. This is John Lennon's legacy. You have hundreds and hundreds of people standing here singing Beatles songs. The man had an impact upon people's lives. And as a parent, we have an impact on our children's lives. And this is where it has to start. The change has to start in the home.
Do you talk about this stuff other than with a stranger in the middle of Central Park on a Tuesday night?
Yes, all the time.
You do?
It's one of my beliefs.
And what kind of feedback do you get from people in your community?
I hear, how could anybody deny the fact that you should be a good loving parent and guide your children on the proper path? you don't see it. I mean, you see children being abused, you see children being, killed by their own parents, what have you. It's a terrible thing, but when you deal with a world that has however many billions we're up to now, 5 billion people, you're going to get a very low percentage that, have lost their way.
On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being really good, do you have hope for the future? What number? It changes daily, probably.
I'll tell you, it's below 5. I just don't like what I see. But, you go back to the late 60s, my parents didn't like what they saw. That was a very tumultuous time in American history and world history. So it could rebound back to a more stable situation, but we have to leave it for the most part up to our leaders to guide us through the tough times.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
This is great.
Really appreciate it.
Lasting legacies are a funny thing. We hear John Lennon's legacy in his music and see it at Strawberry Fields forever. But for the rest of us, lasting legacies take a little more work. For 35 years, Marty has dropped everything to be here on this day. And as his son Paul grew up, he too has dropped everything to share this scene with his dad. Each time they light that small candle, ever so briefly, so it will last for Marty's lifetime, and for Paul's, and for those who follow. A father and son, boomer and millennial, together in Central Park on a Tuesday night. They blow out the candle, say goodbye, and head off to dinner.
I wanna hold your hand.
Oh, and it turns out Marty isn't just a Beatles fan. He lives it in his spare time too, performing with a Beatles tribute band in New Jersey called Beatles Faux Sale. They play weddings and have been on TV, and get this, on stage Marty portrays Paul McCartney, from his witty banter to that left-handed guitar. I never thought to ask if he named his son Paul after Paul McCartney. What do you think? Well, thanks for taking time to stop by and be part of the Front Porch movement, a voice in civic engagement with stories that inform, connect, and help us understand one another. I invite you to share your own story at frontporchmovement.com. And since you made it this far, hopefully without scrolling to the end, please share this with your friends. It'll help this community grow and bring diverse voices together. I'm your host, Ted Canova. See you next time.
It's such a